see a cartoon? I said, who wants to see a cartoon? Well, I missed the last Dionysium. I know. I failed to make it to the show, and since the theme was failure, it could be argued I was right on theme, right? So, but you know, missing a Dionysium these days, it's especially tragic because you miss a Dionysium, that's 6 months of your life with no Dionysium.
6 months.
Which is really, really tough.
3 months.
But I'm really, really happy to be here tonight. And I felt, you know, I felt especially obligated to stick with the theme because I hadn't been here in a while, because art is very, very precious to me. So I dove into my catalog of animated shorts, and I got onto YouTube, and I found, I could have chosen from any number of, biographical depictions of famous artists or really awful attempts to animate famous works of art. There was tons of stuff out there. But I'll be honest with you, none of it matched what I just kind of stumbled upon a couple of days ago. And I showed it to my animation class yesterday at UT, and their reaction convinced me that this is the one for you tonight. And it has nothing to do with art. Sorry. But, rather than show you a mediocre short about art, I figured I would show you something that is a work of art. So, yeah, right.
Is it right?
It actually does, Leonard. It actually does. So, this is called There's a Man in the Woods. There's a man in the woods.
There's a man in the woods. What a spectacle. Before the story started, this school was still respectable. My students used to skip down the hill to the honeysuckle, pluck a couple, and collect their nectar till they picked their fill. Except one obnoxious kid, Sid, who just watched them eat the flowers while he seethed and scowled because he couldn't bear to share his sweet treats throughout our recess hour. I remember Sid saying, "There's a man in the woods." That's how the rumors began. Of course, Sid had spotted him first. The poor kids. He got him immersed in his spiel about a serial killer whose gun barrel glint hints at peril. A visit to the nurse, or worse, a hearse waiting just beyond the dale. The children saw him everywhere. "Look, over there. That man had Batman ears, we swear, and crazy yellow eyes. We saw something rusty. His shotgun? It must be. I saw a lady's severed thigh." Trust me, every word I heard was absurd. Yet each day Sid would stray down way past the playground. Who else was brave enough to save us from the killer's next plot? The rest of the lot would stop back in the blacktop, sure that any closer they were bound to be found deep in the woods, left to rot. I pleaded for the kids to think and learn to be mature, but after a few more rumors doomed my attempts to prove the school was secure, their fear was undeterred, and when the buses drove them all home, the parents finally heard. Everything just blew up. I received a wall of emails and calls full of shrieks, wails, and all from terrified families who'd heard word of the murderer and didn't like my lack of action at all. What was I supposed to do? Comb the whole forest? Yeah, right. Would you? That means I didn't care? That's not fair. The stories that worried you weren't true. Of course I would feel regret had there been a real threat and I ignored it, and some poor kid got kidnapped while the kids were napping. But you couldn't admit that your good little kid would formulate a fib, so you ignored what I said. Your little angels could never cook up such incredible creations. An overactive imagination maybe, but my kid could never lie. How dare I? Accuse a child of being dishonest? just monstrous. The parents were displeased, and when the PTA took action, they dismissed me from the classroom. Why, they knew what was best for their kids. Do you know how difficult it is to get a job when a bitter mom slathers your rep with child neglect from the outset? Now who's in control of your classes? Single file lines? Single file lines, little file swine, a killer by the pines. Really? Are you blind? Will you find your spines? Sid, a child decides to fill our minds with lies, and the next thing you see is people treating me like I'm committing crime. I wasn't my crime. Those kids were lucky to have me. Do you see what you did? But I can play along. I can be good. Do you hear that, Sid? There's a man in the woods.
Feel that? It's good, right? So I show that to my students. One of the things that I say about animation, so much of it relies on good timing. It's all about timing, really. And I feel like this one did such a great job of creating a rhythm and building a momentum, and then just stopping, just leaving you with that echo of that feeling. And so I love it. And the other thing that I liked about it, that I felt like would be inspiring to animation students and to myself too, is because that feeling that was left in the room when it was over, that had nothing to do with the finesse of the animation itself. The animation itself, if you go back and look at it with a technical eye, isn't anything special, but it does exactly what it needs to do. And so when you look at it from a student's perspective, nobody's going to think. I mean, this is an example of it doesn't take much. It's a lot of times students think that they're not good enough to do what it is that they conceive, and I think this is evidence that if you do just what you need to do, you can create